All right, welcome back to the Neutral Zone. Today we're going to be previewing the 2025 Florida Gators. This Florida Gator team under Billy Napier actually really took a big step last year. I think surprised a lot of us. We know some of the names: DJ Lagway, the young freshman last year, stepping into his sophomore season. So the real question is: do these Florida Gators continue on that trajectory, trying to navigate a very tough SEC schedule? Or do they regress back to the season before where they were under a 500 team? Steven, what's up? What's your thoughts on these Gators?
Like you said, they were very good last year. I think if you look at their schedule, they surprised us. I mean, I think before we previewed them, we saw them. I think we previewed them like 3-9 or 4-8 or something crazy like that. Obviously, they lost to Georgia by 2 possessions. They lost to A&M by 2 possessions, and they had the big loss against Texas and the big loss against
Texas.
Miami. But outside of that, they looked really good. They beat a really good Ole Miss team, a really good LSU team. Obviously, the Florida State game is a rivalry game. But other than that, they had some really good wins. Lost to Tennessee in overtime, which is a really good game. If you guys watched that one, that was a night game. So that was a
Yes.
good one as well. But overall, like you said, I think it'll be interesting to see do they progress or do they go backwards? And I think when you look at the team as a whole, recruiting wise, they had a top 10 class. I'll just go to the next screen. They had a top 10 class in recruiting. Didn't sign any 5 stars, but had a lot of 4 stars in this class. And they bring back, obviously, one of the more explosive quarterbacks in college football, young quarterbacks in college football, and DJ Lagway. We saw him get the start later in the season when Graham Mertz got injured. And one game, I think he had like 400 yards passing or something crazy like that. So obviously want to see what kind of step he takes. He's on the cover of the new college football game, the deluxe edition. So obviously high regards for him. But what do you feel about this team, what they lost, what they brought back? Didn't do a lot in the transfer portal, but what do you feel about their roster?
My big concern for them are playmakers on the outside. So as you look at the key losses, you'll notice they lost their number 1 and number 2 wide receiver. They are bringing back Eugene Wilson, but Eugene Wilson was like a 500-yard receiver last year. I'm sorry, a sub 500-yard receiver last year. So who can step up on the outside and be a real playmaker? I like that offensive line. They're bringing back 4 or 5 offensive linemen, and the right tackle, the one player that Bryce Lovett that didn't start last year did start in that Tulane bowl game. So he also has some playing time. So bringing back 5 starting linemen, theoretically, and again, I said 5, but really it's 4. Bringing back basically your entire offensive line with a quarterback that you suspect will take another step. A freshman quarterback last year that showed some flashes. The person that doesn't get a lot of love for Florida, Jaden Baugh, you have him up there as key returners. Also a freshman last year, went for about 700 yards rushing. You mix him with Jacoby Jackson coming back, and you got a good running game. So if you can get a receiver, I think the Florida defense is always going to be pretty good. They bring back a lot on that defense, even though they're missing a lot. Really, in that secondary, this is where we're talking about players like Hermione McLean. They bring back both starting safeties. So the real question on them is, can DJ Lagway take a step? Um, and can they get a playmaker on the outside? Now, you also see in that recruiting class, you see Dallas Wilson, Vernell Brown, the 2 freshman receivers. So if one of them can pop off, the other part, and we got to talk about this every time we talk about an SEC team, is Florida can have a really good season. All of those things can pan out. But as we kind of move to that next slide, it's how do you navigate that schedule? They have a very tough schedule for the second year in a row, and that's also going to maybe hamper or derail their prospects. What's your thoughts, Stephen?
So when I look at this Florida kind of roster and their makeup, what concerns me the most is what they've lost. I think Jaden Ball is a really good running back. They had like a 3-headed monster last year with Johnson, Jackson, and Ball. So I don't think it's going to be a monster loss losing Montrell Johnson. But I don't know if they're going to be able to consistently move the ball up and down the field if you don't have a pass game. And I think you have to have a pass game in today's college football. And when you lose Chimere Dike and Elijah Badger, I don't think Eugene Wilson, I think he has like 230 yards receiving last year, something very minuscule. He was a third option. I think he has to take a leap. But then you also lose a lot on the defensive side of the ball. I think you lose like 3 or 4 of your number one tackling or your top
tacklers, yep.
tacklers. So obviously Cormani McClain moving over from Colorado. I'm not sure. I haven't heard much from him, in the offseason or even last year. So hopefully he can be what he's supposed to be.
I think he's in the 2 deep. I don't think he's starting, but I think he's in the 2 deep.
Your only real big addition in the transfer portal was Jermichael Sturdivant out of UCLA. He's a really good receiver, so he should be able to plug in and help out Eugene Wilson in the pass game. But my biggest concern is how much kind of reps does DJ Lagway have with new guys? Because there's not going to be a plethora of chemistry between him and the other offensive weapons. So I don't know how good it's going to be. I think DJ Lagway is a very good talent, but I think we have to see it on paper as well. And when you look at it in the SEC, that is going to be very tough this year. Florida has kind of been the consistent, I'm not going to say bottom of the barrel, but they're a very good program, but they've consistently underachieved in the last decade. So I just don't know if I'm willing to.
Yeah, I disagree, because I will say they overachieved last year. I don't think either of us had them going.
So they overachieved in a sense of we had them thinking they're going to go 3-9. But as far as overachieving in the sense of the program's history and the program itself, I think they should be a team that is consistently in the top 25. They should be a team that is fighting for an SEC title spot, and they just haven't done that. And I would love to see Florida in that realm. I would love to see Florida, the Miami, those type of teams in that conversation, because I think college football is a little bit better when you have historical programs. And I say historical. Some people might disagree with that, because I guess that's for my generation. Florida was a historical program with the Tebows, the Percy Harvins of the world. So I think they were a historical program for me growing up. For them to take such a backseat in the SEC in college football, I do want to see them get back to the pinnacle of the sport. But let's get right into talking about this, because we are completely separated. So I want you to give your reasoning on why you have them going 9-3 this year before I talk about them myself.
So the very simple part is, I think you're bringing back one of the best returning quarterbacks, at least in terms of potential. I think the fact that you have, again, the good portion of your offensive line coming back is a very big deal. And that is a very good Florida offensive line. So to me, that is what makes me believe that Florida is going to have a really good season next year. That offensive line coming back is a big deal. Yes, I have concerns about what they're going to get on the outside, but I think somebody's going to step up. I think between the players that they organically had, as you mentioned, Michael Sturdivant coming over, those 2 freshman receivers, somebody's going to step up and be a threat on the outside. If you get that going, again, yes, they lost some things on the defensive side too, but I think this is a team that's on the up. They were 8-5 last year. Yes, there are losable games when you look at this, which is why I have their floor at 5-7. And I wouldn't be surprised if they're 5-7. And I could easily argue the 4-8. But I think this is a team and again, in a year where quarterback retention is probably at an all-time low, especially with a quarterback that has starts in your program, I think that is a big deal. I think bringing back 5 offensive linemen is a big deal. So I think that is going to get them over the hump over some of these teams. There are teams that I have questions about. Obviously, Miami is talented, and I'm not going to say Miami can't beat Florida, but I think Florida, just based off of when that game is being played, I think they will have a little bit better continuality. We could talk about that with the A&M game. We could talk about that with the Ole Miss game, the Tennessee game, the Florida State game. This is a tough schedule. I just think Florida kind of built some calluses last year and went through some teams and won some games that we didn't suspect that they were going to win last year. I think they'll do it again this year.
So I agree. I do think the ceiling at 10-2. Before I go, I'm going to assume that the 2 games you don't think they're going to win are LSU, Texas, or is it LSU, Georgia?
No, LSU, Texas. The Georgia game to me is a up in the air game. Again, a rivalry, played at a neutral site. And we talked about it earlier. Florida looked really good in that game until DJ Lagway got hurt.
Yeah, the 2 games I can't see them winning are Texas, LSU. I think in Death Valley, it's going to be obviously an evening game. I don't think they're able to win that game, and I don't think they could beat Texas. I do have them losing to Miami. I think Miami's still going to be pretty good this season. Obviously, that's a rivalry game as well, so I think that could go both ways. I think at
Right.
Texas A&M, go ahead.
But as you said, mine is crazy. Would you be shocked if Florida won that mine? Because again, you had the ceiling the same, so the rest of the games are toss-ups.
Yeah,
Like
I
even
think
for
this.
you.
Yeah, they're top. Well, so no. Okay, wait. They're not. Don't try to slide that in there. They're not toss ups for me. The Miami game is a toss up. I think that game is a toss up, but I don't think the A&M game and I don't think the Georgia game is a toss up. I have A&M and Georgia beating them pretty handedly, and I don't think A&M is a far better team than Florida, but I think at Kyle Field that's a top 5 environment. I think DJ Lagway is still a very young quarterback. He didn't start the entire season, so I think at Kyle Field in that environment is going to be very hard for any quarterback. And I think Georgia is just an overall better team, even though it's a rivalry game. I don't think they can beat Georgia. And the same thing with Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss on the road late in the season, that's a toss-up game. But I think Ole Miss will beat them just based off home field advantage. So I have them going 6-6. I could see a 7-5 situation based on obviously the Georgia or the Ole Miss game or even the Miami game. But I don't think this team's going to be great this season, and I don't think it's because the team itself is very bad. They just have a really hard schedule. I think the teams you play on the road are really good teams. The teams you have at home are really good teams, or even better teams. I think Texas and Georgia are better teams than everyone else. I mean, Georgia and LSU are close, but Texas and Georgia are very good teams. So the two teams you have at home are miles better than you, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But I think the teams you have away, you have a chance where if you look at it on paper, you're like, I can see them winning, but you're going into hostile environments. Then Tennessee, and then Tennessee, obviously, I'm not going to say I'm just throwing that game out the window because we don't know what they're going to be. There's just a lot of question marks. And Florida State as well. Florida State is also a very good rivalry game. I think Florida State's going to be a lot better this season, but I just can't go out and say they're going to beat Florida, especially on the road at Florida when they looked as bad as they looked last season.
I think as we get deeper into this, and just like you mentioned in terms of their schedule, you're going to see it. I think there's going to be some teams that are going to be really hard to break down. Like you mentioned, the Tennessees, the Florida States, and we can probably name another 10, 15 teams that are just, we are going to be taking best guess because we don't know. We have no idea really what that's going to look like. We may get a couple weeks in and realize that, hey, everything in Tennessee is back on track. Like, I will say if Nico was back at Tennessee, I probably would have had Tennessee to win that game.
Yeah.
But with the quarterback and some of that, and we may find out a couple weeks in that, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but the quarterback that transferred into Tennessee, hey, he's balling too. And hey, Tennessee is still a formidable threat. Like you mentioned, that Florida State thing may really turn around. Now, right now, I'm a little concerned. I'm a little apprehensive on saying, hey, Florida State's going to be back next year. But there's a lot of things that we don't know. What we do know is Florida's bringing back dang near 5 offensive linemen and DJ Lagway.
I respect it. Florida fans, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Also, if you're a fan of college football, drop in the comments what you guys think of the Gators season upcoming as well as their offseason. And last but not least, let us know what you guys want to talk about as far as other teams, other topics on the channel. We had a comment come in yesterday that asked us to go over top returning quarterbacks in college football. So we're going to be going. Yeah, we're going to be going over that in the next couple of days as well. So make sure you guys, like I said, hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace out.
Peace out.